Hello, Louisa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm
I'm doing
fine. Well, nice. I'm happy to hear that, and I'm doing well as well. Happy to have you. You're a new guest on Law Break, and I'm very excited and looking forward to chatting with you because I actually wanted to put the spotlight on you, not to put pressure on you in this interview, because you do have an interesting background and story that I thought it would be very nice to share with people who are, like interested in criminal defense who, like you, would want to seek a career change. I find your story is really interesting and very um, one of these motivational stories. So I'm going to let you start by telling us, Louisa, what is it that you're doing now and what is it that you did before you became a lawyer?
so what I'm doing now is I'm practicing criminal law defense. I met you in Cornwall
Mhm.
when I was working as duty counsel, and I met you, and I thought recognized you from the foundations of soul practice. So I enrolled in that course with LSO because I also decided to open up my own firm and to work for myself and you're recognizable because you were in the videos with the Foundations of Soul practice. And I decided that I would introduce myself. And that's how we got to know each other. And then you told me about Lawbreak and this video that you do. So here I am, a little bit nervous, but here I am.
Well, no need to be nervous. This is just a chat, and it's where you get to share your story and your experience. So, you're working on the defense side right now in criminal law. But before that, you had a career, an entire career before you became a lawyer. So, first of all, when did you become a lawyer?
I was called to the bar in March 2024.
Okay.
So still a new.
Brand Brand new call. Wow. So like you're just starting off and before that though you had a long career doing something completely different. So let's dive into that and tell us a bit more about what you did before you became a lawyer, Louisa.
So I was a teacher and then secondary vice principal and then elementary principal. And that's where I spent most of my career being an elementary principal. I found it to be a very rewarding career. I enjoyed watching the students grow and celebrating in their successes and also supporting them through their challenging times. So I had an opportunity to work with students and with staff and also with parents. I enjoyed teaching secondary. When I was a vice principal, I also had a teaching component to my administration duties, and that was teaching civics and career studies. And I enjoyed that. And the civics part of it was very interesting. Also, when I became elementary principal, I was able to, of course, lead and guide staff and students and also manage the day-to-day operations of the school. But I also found special projects to do and I always loved music and dance and drama and painting. So I was able to, offer my gifts to students and I would offer and put, after school programs together. So I enjoyed seeing students, those that were very vocal and those that, like to, maybe stand up in class a little bit too much and put the focus on them that I'd put them on the stage and they really did very well as actors, as singers. And it helped build self-confidence and help with discipline and teamwork and also for the well-being of students. It's something that they really enjoyed. So now you ask me, why did I leave all of that?
Yes, exactly.
Well, unfortunately, my son was in an accident, a very serious car accident, and I had to be there for him. So he had just graduated from university, and he had plans himself, to go and teach English as a second language, and he was even selected as a professor's helper to teach a summer course with him, and all that was taken away from him. So it was a very serious
Yes,
car
very sorry to
accident.
hear that about your son,
Oh,
though.
thank you. So it was a very serious car accident.
Mm.
He was in a coma. He was on life support. Doctors gave him 15% chance of surviving. And then they said if he did survive and, come out of his coma, he would have severe impairments. I know on day 10, the doctors wanted, us to take him off life support. And I became extremely emotional. I wasn't ready. I was crying. I was saying it was way too soon. He still had a chance, and we didn't know everything, and he was showing me signs, like there was signs that I saw he was still there. Um, and so doctors, let him be, and he stayed on life support. On day 15, he did recover. Well, he did come out of his coma, and he did have severe impairment. So he suffered post-traumatic amnesia. He had left side paralysis. He had aphasia. He wasn't able to speak, to read, to write. And on top of all that, he had double vision. So he spent 4 months in the hospital, and I was there advocating for him. I knew him. He was living at home. I knew what his goals were, and I knew that he would want to recover. And so
Mm.
that's what I advocated for. The professionals put a lot of pressure on us to place him in a group home. However, I didn't consent to that, and he wanted to come home too. So we brought him home. One of the professors came and visited regularly, and said, when you're out of the hospital, come and see me. So we did, and he invited my son back to class. He had just finished university, and he thought that would be a great way for him to get his memory back. And it was a familiar place, and he knew the professor, and he said yes. So when we spoke to one of the doctors about it, he thought it was a really bad idea. He said it wasn't a place for him, and but the we spoke to the professor, and the professor said to my son, "It's your choice. Do you want to come back to class?" And so we did, and so that kind of begins our journey with um, it was difficult because a lot of times, the staff had ideas of what the recovery should be and what it should look like, and it was, kind of like, place them in a box and this is what you can do. And we had different ideas and we had different thoughts of how his recovery should look like. I was there in the hospital, and I had to be there because some days he didn't want to do the therapy, and I said, no, you're doing the therapy because it's good for you and you're going to get better. And, just to keep his morale up, and he wasn't talking, right? There was a lot of things that he was forgetting. So I was there to advocate for him and to communicate with the health professionals. Um, so when it time to be discharged from home, we had a new team. And then again, I just felt that the team didn't want to work with the family. They wanted the family out of the way so that they could just deal with the client. And family is really important because family is there at the end.
Yeah.
Family's be there or family's not going to be there. So it's important to value those relationships and to work with family. So I found that the team that was put together when he was discharged was not adhering to his goals that he had before, and the goal of full recovery. So we have to aim high. So so we found a new team. They were in Southern Ontario, and so we moved. We went to a different community, and I was able to to share with them what he wanted, and also at this point he had started to walk, and he had started to remember, and he had started
Nice.
to speak and to write, and being an educator myself, I had to teach him a lot of those things.
Mhm.
Had his therapist, to work on the physical and the the mental, but I was there to
A
educate
good
him.
thing you were a teacher, so
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
able to use your full teaching skills here.
yeah. So I had a lot of issues, with the system, with the healthcare professionals, and with insurance and also with legal. And a lot of times, like I felt like I was disrespected and I wasn't listened to, and I felt disempowered. And I was researching and I was looking for new treatment options. And we had read Norman Deutsch, the brain is changing and
Mhm.
healing, and there's new treatments. And I was sharing that, and a lot of times, traditional health professionals would just dismiss that or ignore it, and I just didn't feel like, what I had to bring to the team was valued. So we did go to Southern Ontario, and I found the team. I found a team that was going to, be there for my son and provide him with the care that he needed, but also be open to explore, different options and different treatments. And some of these doctors were the pioneers in these new treatment procedures. So we worked with them, and it certainly benefited him, and he
Mhm.
did, an amazing recovery. And so I spent a lot of time in the waiting room, as, meeting families that were in the same situation as me, and,
Yeah.
sharing my story, and, they're sharing their story with me. And I was, telling them how, challenges that I came across and what I did, and I was able to support them, that way, and help them as well with the challenges they were facing. So I felt that, one day I just woke up and, because I remember speaking to one, lawyer, and he said, we hear a lot of sad stories. So it just didn't make me feel like our story was, important enough, or, something that, I didn't feel the care and compassion. And that's something that we wanted, right? So I wanted to be a lawyer. I woke up one day and I'm there, okay, well, I'm going to go to law school and be a lawyer, and try to do it different.
Wow. Well, first
So
of all,
that's the story.
how's your son doing right
Oh,
now?
oh,
We
he's
want to
doing.
know. Is he?
Yes. So, I think, that professor, I thank him because, he went back to university, and, at first it was auditing. And then, when the memory started coming back, and when he was able to, to read and write and speak, he had to relearn all of that,
Yeah.
he decided to. It was when we were in Southern Ontario, and it was Ryerson at that time, but now Toronto Metropolitan University. He took a university course on his own and did it on his own, and he
Hmm.
did well. And then he decided he wanted to go into film and use technology, and he did the intensive build program, and was successful with that as well. So he's still working at it every day, and he's in a good place now. So it's
Well,
much better.
that's very nice to hear. And is he able to move now? Was he able to recuperate any of his mobility? Uh,
Oh, yes, I do have to say that when we were in the hospital for the 4 months, like he worked with a great physiotherapy team,
hmm.
and he relearned.
Wow.
And also, like, with the occupational therapist, with the use of his left arm and hand, he was, we met this great occupational therapist in Southern Ontario, and she worked with school students, like elementary and high school, and she was doing like computer skills. And I said, that's exactly what I want for him. Like, because
Yeah.
before he was just like, well, okay, we're going to go grocery shopping, or, you're going to do cooking, and do laundry, which is, well, that's not what I want him to focus on right now, because I'm
Yeah.
there to help him with that, and we'll do that together. But I need someone to, to explore more things that he can do, and to push him into, and now he uses technology, and it's been very beneficial for him.
Well, that's amazing. That's so, I mean, your story is amazing, and also that of your son, because it's really very nice to hear like a story like that where something so tragic happens, but then, it's just this will to persevere, and it's very nice that you didn't accept the answers or the information that you were given, and you really believed in his recovery, and that you persisted in, like trying your best to keep on pushing and helping him get better. And now he's, in in a much better place. And now that led you to a completely different career path, Louisa. And so then it is really what happened to your son, this whole experience that made you want to become then a lawyer. So is it because you felt that there was some injustice in the world and that, that people are not being properly heard or like they need someone to fight for them? Is that really what was going on at that time that pushed you to become a lawyer yourself?
I'm going to say yes. Like, his file wasn't complete. And I just felt that, maybe I needed to be a lawyer for people to respect me and to listen to me and to value my opinion and to know that, his family's coming from a good place. We want him to recover. We want him to do well. And we just need to ensure that when all this is said and done, that, the relationship with the family is not destroyed, but it's something that, is supported. And when an accident happens to one person, it doesn't just happen to that person. It
Right.
happens to the whole family. It affects the whole
Yeah.
family. And uh, yeah, I wanted to be a lawyer so that I can continue to advocate for him and also to support him in his career and also, all the families that I met and people that, have crossed path with me and I was able to provide them with information and to help them and to really listen to them and see, what do they need and how can you help them? Of course, within the law um, but sometimes, that's what you need. You can look at it differently and from a different perspective and you can challenge new therapies for people to and doctors to look at and consider because you just don't know. You have to have hope.
Yeah.
If you go in with, oh, everything is, no, it's not gonna be, it's not going to work out. It's, the glass half full. I just had a different perspective and I had to, and that's who I was, you know, during the midst of tragedy. That's who I was, just continuing to do the work and continue to advocate and continue to push. And yeah, so I do want to bring that to my clients as well. Listen to their story, value their story, respect who they are, and try to help them make things better for them.
Yes. And that's very important on the defense side because I just feel like things are already very difficult for someone who is charged with a criminal offense. As you mentioned, when a person is charged with a criminal offense, unfortunately, it doesn't affect that person alone. It affects their environment as well, their families, the people they know. It affects their employment, how their colleagues treat them. So it's really very heavy. Like just like an accident can completely affect the life of the person, the victim of the accident, but also a criminal charge is also something that affects a person's entire life. We see that a lot with our clients, and they need support, and they're in a very difficult situation. Sometimes it feels like the system is a little bit against them. They have evidence against them. They have the law sometimes is not in their favor, and they have to fight against all these barriers and obstacles. And as you said, it's really important to keep believing, still have hope, even when it feels like there is no hope. It is important to still have that. So, I mean, I have to say, Louisa, this is one of the things that I really liked when we were chatting in the courthouse. It's, that feeling that vibe that I got from you, that, your perseverance, which is very important, especially in the practice of criminal defense, which can be very frustrating. So, okay. So you made that switch and you have, like this desire to want to, help and have people's stories heard. And now you're in it. Now you're doing it. You became a lawyer in 2024, so that's like almost 2 years now. How are you finding the battle? Do you feel like it's easy? Do you regret having done the change, the switch? tell us, how are you experiencing being a lawyer now?
Well, no, no regrets. Just continue moving
Nice.
forward. I'm learning so much, and
Hmm.
I am a new call, and also there's so much to learn. I'm doing duty counsel work, and I find that very rewarding as well. And I help clients, when they're arrested, do you have a bail plan?
Yeah.
Can you be released? And then again, working with sureties, often their family, very
Yes.
close friends,
Yeah.
and trying to have like, a really good bail plan so that the Crown will consent to their release. And and you know and this is where sometimes I work with families and they'll say, well, um if we're going to be sureties, however, we want this, and I remind them that I'm the lawyer for the client and I take instructions from them, and also just to remind them how they can be sureties, and these are the court orders, and however you can have house rules, and if that's something that you negotiate with the client,
Yeah.
your family member, if they're in agreement, then they can move forward too, right? So I know a lot of times family has their best interest, but sometimes the client's just not ready to
Right.
get the help that they're requesting. So it's kind of like a delicate dance that you have to do. So, here's, me going back and forth, right? Going to talk to them and sell, okay, this is what the sureties want, and going back and telling them what they want. In the end, you know, I'm hopeful that when they are released, they can continue working on family, relationships, but also work on, the client getting, a criminal defense lawyer to defend them with the charges they have. And sometimes if there's, mental health and addictions as well, that, they're able to work on that. So that they can, when they come before the judge, they have some mitigating factors that they can present, and hopefully, it's resolved, in a more favorable manner for them.
Well, and I mean, if there's something in common, I mean, there isn't really much in common between doing practicing criminal defense and schooling, except that I think one common thing though is your desire to help people. Like whether you're teaching, you're involved in the schooling system, you're helping people, you're educating them, and you're doing the same thing as well in your work as a lawyer. You're also helping people. So it seems like that's something that's the common thread, and that's what you have. It's this desire to help. And that's really very important for a criminal defense lawyer, for anyone who's working on the defense side. It really is that desire to help and bring justice to people that is really very important. But do you feel discouraged sometimes in the practice of criminal defense because of how the system is, not from, like the clients, but just that it is a battle. It's not easy to go and do criminal defense because there's so much that we have to face and fight. So how's that battle going?
Well, that battle, I could say that I have a lot of little battles. Like, it's so busy, right?
Yes.
That, do I have enough time, for myself, number one, for family.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm doing duty counsel work, it's really busy and there's like not too much time to do notes during the day. So I have like bare bones notes, right? So I
Hmm.
know what happened. And then when I get home, like I'll have a quick supper and talk to the family. And then, I might be doing an hour or two of notes. So, it's time consuming some days for sure. Um, Secondly, I think like I'm a new lawyer and there's so much more that I need to learn. However, I find that with new clients and a new day, I'm learning something new. So, and sometimes I don't know. So I'm glad that there's senior duty counsel there, and sometimes experienced lawyers that I can speak to in regards to, oh, I have this situation, and I do have a mentor and I do have a coach because I did participate in the LSO coach program. So
Hmm.
someone that, has opened up their own practice and I'm thankful that that person's a criminal lawyer too. So sometimes when things come up with a client, like, this is what I did, or this is what I think I'm going to do. And I'm glad to hear that, yeah, you're right on, that that's what, because sometimes they're new experiences and, just want to make sure that, I'm handling it correctly. And these are like the ones that are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. And, and as a new, lawyer, I just want to make sure that I deal with that, correctly myself.
And one of the things I think people may be wondering about is it's one thing to study law when, it's your first university degree and, like you're still it's the first thing that you're doing. In your case, no, you've had a career, you've had a degree before that, and then you got into law and it's a pretty intense. So how did you tell us a bit the experience of studying law later on in your career and in your life. How was that experience
Well, I do have to say the first time I went to university, it was much more different than when I went to university the
for
second time.
law? Yeah,
And then on top of that, so I went to Toronto Metropolitan University, and we were the first cohort year, and I started.
for law school.
For law,
Yeah.
yeah. So Lincoln Alexander School of Law. So we were the first class, right? So we started in September 2020. So at that point, it was like we were in lockdown. It was COVID,
On
and
top of it, wow, all
yeah,
the challenges of the world.
yeah.
Yes.
So there's no first day of class. There's no like,
Yeah.
face-to-face meeting with the professors and with, classmates that, could potentially be your group that you would study with. So everything like day one on Zoom,
Yeah.
right? So there was like crash learning for me, how to use Zoom, right? And how to
Yeah.
I use all the online
And it's
platforms.
true. Sorry to interrupt here, but
Oh,
just
go
because
ahead.
we're now recording this in 2026, but we have to remember that back in 2020 during the pandemic, Zoom was not commonly used. Like I know some people were using Zoom, but it's not like now. Now everybody knows Zoom, knows about Zoom or has used Zoom, but it wasn't the case back in 2020. So we all had to learn how to use it and rely on it. So that as well was a challenge, I guess. So, okay, tell us. That's
Yeah,
it's
well,
really
so
interesting.
in, so in university, the first time around, if
Yeah.
I had a presentation, I'd be there in person. They might have a PowerPoint, right? I connect the
Yeah.
computer and it would be on the screen. So now, I'm zooming in
Yeah.
and then, there's my PowerPoint and now I got to share screen
Yeah.
and then see all my classmates and my professor plus my PowerPoint right there. So it's just like so many things coming at
Yeah.
you. Just, oh, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Unmute, or no, you're
And
not sharing
that's just the
screen.
Zoom part of things,
Yeah,
right? Like that's putting aside
exactly.
the law, the actual law, because law is pretty intense. I mean, it's been a while since law school for me, but I remember it was a pretty intense program because for me as well, it wasn't my only program. I did psychology before I studied law, and I thought the law degree was much more intense and heavier than psychology. So,
Well, and what was different for us at Toronto, we are like the
yeah.
second university in Toronto that has that integrated practice curriculum. So the articling is built in the 3 years.
Oh,
And so we had our articling, built in the first, second, and third year. So what it looked like is we had our courses with our academic professors. And then at around four-ish or three-ish, we would meet with our practicum lawyer that would provide the articling piece. So, and that started in first year. So um, we were doing a lot of work, and then we had intensives before beginning of the term, so about 4 days where, it was basically 9 to 5, and, we were meeting with our professors and lawyers and doing intensive courses in the 4 days, and then also expected to complete assignments and upload those assignments like by midnight. And
Yeah.
then the next day is, a brand new topics and brand new assignments. So it was just like, it was basically, kitchen, office, and then sleep, and then, just getting ready for the next day and doing all the assignments and doing all the
Oh, but
readings.
I honestly, I have to say, I have massive respect for you for that because it is really, I mean, what you did is really intense, and not a lot of people are able to do it because it really requires a lot of dedication, a lot of willpower to make the time to do this and to not lo get discouraged and lose hope because it can be very discouraging studying law and later on in the practice of law. So hearing how you had to go through all of these changes, new things happening, the format of studying is also different, and still do it and get your degree. And now you're a lawyer, you're practicing in criminal defense. I just honestly, massive respect to you, Louisa. And I really hope that people will see and realize that it's really unbelievable what you did. And I admire you so much. I mean, I have to say, I really admire you for all the work that you did. And just to think that you're doing this after you've had a whole career, like, why bother? Why? Well, because criminal defense is a lot of headaches. And that's maybe the other thing that I want to get into is that now that you're practicing criminal defense, you're probably aware of the fact that there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who are leaving the defense bar for various reasons because we're underpaid or just because the way the system is really not that much in favor of defense. It feels like the laws are getting tougher and tougher on the accused. It makes it very difficult for us to properly defend our clients. Some defenses are disappearing. Some of the things that we used to rely on, preliminary inquiries, we don't have them anymore or very difficult to have. So it's becoming more and more discouraging to practice in criminal defense. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been and continue to leave the defense bar. So, what is your view and your take on that? And what would you say to anyone who's maybe contemplating becoming a criminal defense lawyer? Would you encourage them? And if they say, well, what about all these negative things or obstacles? What is your take on that, Louisa?
Well, I would say number one, follow follow your passion. So
Hmm.
I know that, I love the arts, but I also love to watch TV. And my favorite shows are crime TV and
Yeah.
crime movies, with police officers and
Hmm.
with lawyers, and, how they collect the evidence, and then, how the lawyers present,
That's what got me
analyze.
into criminal law.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
so
I,
I totally
that
understand.
that's interesting. And
Yeah,
even in
it
law
is.
school, like criminal law was very interesting
Yeah,
compared to some other
I
laws
agree.
that, I had to take. So, so if you have an interest and if you have a passion, do something that you like. Yes, you know what? I could say there are drawbacks, but if you look at any profession, like even even as a principal, there's you could say that all the report cards that you had to read and
Yeah,
sign, that was very time consuming too,
yeah.
and that's something that I did. I'd bring those report card homes, and I would read them. So you are putting in more time. So, if it's something that you enjoy doing, and if you like that profession, yeah, you're going to put in more time, but just make sure that you balance. You have time for family as well, and sometimes, you're saying, oh no, I'm taking a break, but you're going to get it done, or you're going to go in a little bit earlier and you're going to get it done. Um, you know, yeah, it is unfortunate that, it's becoming more difficult to help our clients. But I think, being a member of the associations and then hearing some of their success stories and then the case law that they used, or, a new decision that was made, that's beneficial for all of us. And
That's true. Yeah,
I don't know if you're in the DCAO, but,
yeah.
just reading some of those successes, that's helpful because then it could help you with your client. Um, I would say, you know what, there's drawbacks to any profession,
I
any,
agree. I
um,
agree.
but do we do it for the money or do we do it because we want to help people? We just want to make it better. I think that's got to be the number one motivator as to why you chose criminal
I
law.
agree. I totally agree. And this is actually a really good point that you're making here because there's a lot of focus in the discussions about, like why are people leaving on money? That and money is important. Like I don't want to sound like I'm saying that you shouldn't be doing this for the money. I mean, money obviously is important, especially when you're doing this job full time and this is how you pay your bills. It is important how much money you're making. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think especially when it comes to criminal law, many of us got into this area, I think, I can speak for myself, but it seems like it's the same for you because of a passion for it. Because criminal, I find, I can say personally, I find is the most exciting area of law. Like it's just so interesting. And you can see it even when you go to parties. People want to hear the stories of a criminal defense lawyer or of a criminal lawyer. Nobody really wants to talk about finances or taxes, or unless they're doing a business deal, maybe. But usually, all people want to hear from the criminal lawyers about their crazy stories because we do have really interesting and cool stories sometimes. And I find the law can be very interesting as well, how it applies, the constitutional issues. So, passion is definitely important for this area. And if you have it, it'll be so sad to leave it just because of the money. You will be able to make money. You may not be able to make, I think, a lot of money like in other areas, but you can survive, I think, still uh, as a criminal defense lawyer.
Oh, I believe so. I mean, it's, a first few years, like it's challenging getting
Yeah.
the clients, right? And just getting myself out there. I'm meeting people, but I'm doing duty counsel work. So no, I have to get my
Now, you're
name out.
not just doing duty counsel work, though, right? Like,
I do have my own law firm and I am
exactly.
accepting
Yeah.
legal aid certificates and also, private paying
Yeah.
customer too.
Yeah. So
However,
that's one thing to clarify
yeah,
that you're not just duty counsel, you do duty counsel work, but you also have your own private practice as a criminal defense lawyer.
yeah. So,
Okay.
and that takes time, right? To get my name
Of
out.
course.
Right? And
Of
then
course.
say, oh, well, Louisa helped me with duty counsel work, or there's this lawyer out there that, is able to, do the bail hearing and hopefully, get me out on bail. So, I'm going to give her a shout. But that takes time, right? So you just got to hang in there, like. Um, you just got to keep doing the work and pushing through and also networking too. Like I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of times, the clients, they want that lawyer, right? And those are the lawyers that have been around and have big law firms. But, sometimes, they might not be able to take that file or maybe they're too busy and maybe some of those files can come to me, So I think it's important to network too with other experienced lawyers and law firms and say, hey, I'm here, and if there's any way that, some of those files, you're not able to handle them, like, you can send them my way. And so yeah, so, the networking too is something that I want to focus on. That's one of the goal, and also growing the practice, so that I do have clients, that I can help. And, yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm hanging in there. I'm not going to give up. It was so, and my husband said, law school was so expensive that, kind of got to recoup some of that
I
money.
know that's why, like it's really I admire you so much because it is expensive. It's expensive, it's difficult. There's a lot of work that you have to do just at the studying stage to becoming a lawyer. Law school is very intense. So just to see that you're doing this and after everything that you've already been through. Like you could have just said after, like your son's accident, like I give up. I'm like, why am I fighting? What am I fighting for? And now you're not just fighting, like you didn't just fight for your son, you're now fighting for other people's rights. So that's very, it's something that I really admire you for because it's tough and to to know that you're doing this after everything you had to experience yourself is really incredible. And I think that your clients will appreciate you for that because they know that you're coming from this background of, fighting and keep believing in something. So that's really important for a lawyer, I find, a defense lawyer, especially.
And and having been a client myself and my son being a client, success, you don't know what it if you're going to get success. You just got to keep, doing the work and,
Yeah,
having the conversations and then hopefully, down the line, the path that you take is going to lead you to success or at least lead you to a better resolution
that's true.
that you had anticipated. And sometimes, you know, um, the success that you have in mind might not be exactly what you end up with, but it's a resolution that you can accept and is better.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So, one, if I just wanted to ask you for your final thoughts or maybe some words of encouragement to all these new lawyers or people who are aspiring lawyers, what would you say, Louisa?
Well, what I would say is, if you're in law school, find the law that you have passion for.
Yes,
Join the clubs, join the groups, go to the networking events and see what inspires you. Because you want to pick a career that it's not like, oh, I'm going to work and oh, I'm dreading it, that I'm excited to go to work. Like, who am I going to meet today and what kind of work am I going to do today? And so, I'm excited about going to work, and that's how you should feel no matter what area of law that you want to practice. Yeah, sometimes the money is difficult, sometimes, you're not getting the duty counsel shifts or, you spend a lot of times on the phone with someone that, wants to give you your legal aid certificate, but then, is kind of like contemplating between you or the other person and then they go with the other person. But you know what? You just hang in there and then, one day they are going to pick you,
yeah,
right? And you just continue mastering your craft, right? So, continue doing the professional development and continue speaking with experienced lawyers and continue doing the research and, new case law out there, new decisions. And, if it's what you love and what you're interested in, stick it through. And that's what I did. And it's in my DNA. I don't know if I could ever just stay home and do nothing and I'm
well,
just that kind of
definitely not. It doesn't look like you're able to just sit and do nothing. It seems like you have this
yeah.
desire and passion to help, which is really very nice. But I also agree, and I join you on that. That passion is really very important in everything in life, honestly. Like, not just, I mean, you need to be passionate about what you do for a living as a job, but even with your friends, the people that you love, the people around you, it is really what brings this extra to what you do. It's your passion, and people feel it. They feel when you like what you're doing, as opposed to just doing it because you want to survive. So I think that's really good advice. That if you really do have a passion for something, first of all, you need to find what is it that you're passionate about, and once you have it, just stick to it and keep doing it because it's what's going to help you at the end. I think
Yeah.
it's,
Like you think, like it's hockey season right now. And I just
Mhm.
remember my son when he started playing hockey, like, at first it just doesn't, you can't skate and you can't handle the puck but after practicing and practicing and practicing, you do get better. And also like, and you'll get more clients too. Like, the more you practice and the more you're out there, the more
It's true.
clients. And hopefully you can make a good living,
Yeah.
right? And be able to support your family. But you know what? If you love it, like if you love playing hockey, if you love practicing criminal law, then you're going to stick with it. If you decide to leave, then I don't really think it was ever your passion and it wasn't something you really wanted to do. And you have to find what you're passionate about. And because happiness is important too and well-being. So if you're not happy and it's the work is something you don't want to do, then maybe you should find what you're passionate about.
I totally agree. Well, Louisa, it was really very nice chatting with you. I hope you're not nervous anymore. I know you were a little
Yeah.
bit nervous at the beginning of the interview, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed chatting with you and I love hearing your story. I just think it's really it's an amazing story and it's a story that really gives a lot of hope and it brings passion back to people, even though I already like what I do, but hearing people like you just makes me, it reminds me again of why we do this. So thank you
Yeah.
so much
Well, thank you for
for,
inviting me.
for taking the time. And hopefully we can also chat again soon and see how things are going and do a follow-up on how your career is going. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
sounds good. Thank you very much.